Sir, this is a real problem, isn't it? Because you've got this trifecta of issues. You've got Trump and his tariffs and the trade war, and if the EU ultimately has to retaliate, it might make some products more expensive. You've got all the inflationary pressures and everything Craig talked about there. And then possible economic stagnation. John mentioned a recession even earlier in the show. I did some research. Would you believe, a rare piece of research, Kerrygold, there it is, the classic pound of butter. That was €3.90 this time last year. Do you know how much I paid for that between News Talk Studios and here this evening?
Don't tell him.
Yeah, if Virgin Media are listen, I'm going to be expensing this. You can be sure.
I should that as well.
How much do you think?
I go for the spreadable stuff because it's easier. I think it's about €4.20 or something.
€4.20.
Yeah.
Sinead?
I'd say it's a little higher than that.
€5.50. €5.50 for a pound, but that's a 41% increase in the last year. And Kantar earlier this week, they had a survey results out as well that showed, upward price pressure on lots of things. And it means people are leaving things out of the grocery basket. I mean, this profoundly impacts. It's easy to kind of say, God, that lady's spending £7 on an iced coffee. But this really impacts people.
It does. I think, the coffees, people will work around that. But it is the impact that all of those factors that are having on the coffee are having on the regular shopping basket as well. Some of it is the uncertainty that we now see in the marketplace. Some of it came back from COVID, actually. So we saw that inflationary cycle. We saw energy increase at that time, which virtually any of those products require an intensive amount of energy through the production. So all in all, that is having an effect. There's probably a little bit of latency here because we hadn't seen that steady increase in price where we knew there was inflationary pressures, mainly masked by the significant increase in energy. We're now seeing it in the shopping basket, and that is going to have an impact on people's...
It's going to put pressure on you as well for another cost of living package, isn't it?
Well, it is, but you have seen an increase too in recent years in terms of the negotiations that have been done in terms of the increases in wages, and I think what we've been trying to do, as you know, is kind of meet that growth in wages in line with the cost that had already gone up, but not add to the inflation.
But to stick with the food theme, I mean, eating bread is soon forgotten. And if this keeps going up in price and we get stagnation, people's wages are not going to go up anymore.
And that's why, as part of the budgetary cycle, these issues get addressed. And from now till September, all of that will be feeding into the Department of Finance in terms of how they're going to frame the next budget. The parameters and the context will be significantly different to what they were last year. But that's what the budgetary cycle is about. And as I said previously, I don't want to sound repetitive, successive governments have always addressed the issues as they find themselves and look at the scope of monies that are available.
Liz, the concern people will have is that they listen to food economists, experts in this area, and they'll say, you know what we actually had for a few years was an aberration. Prices were abnormally low. This isn't an aberration now. This is where they're going to steady off at best.
Yeah,
that's really terrifying to people who are struggling.
Yeah, and it's quite striking that it feels like lots of the things that are kind of essentials that we need to live are becoming increasingly unaffordable. We can talk about housing, we can talk about groceries, and yet we're being flooded by all of this stuff that we don't need, which seems incredibly cheap and is shipped here by Temu or whatever else. And so, yeah, I think there's a risk that we kind of fall into flippancy. I think especially of, let's say the €7 iced coffee. I'm a fan of an iced coffee. Not sure I've ever seen one for €7 myself. But, when people are living in their parents' bedrooms or, they're not able to get some of those kind of essential things and progress in their lives. Or I have friends who are, postponing having babies because they'll never get a mortgage. Or, then, it does come, a lot of it does come down to just having some of these kind of joys, just having some joy in life as well.
John, you're probably enjoying subsidised coffee and tea, are you, in Leinster House?
I told you that off the record. For ethical reasons, I don't avail of the subsidised coffee in Leinster House.
That's
but Timmy and Sinead do. You can get a coffee in Leinster House in the bar for $2.10 for an Americano. I think an espresso maybe even less than €2, but
It's nicer in the members' bar.
But do you suspect that it is coffee? Do you suspect?
I can live without a coffee.
Do you suspect? Yeah, but people might be able to live without their pound of butter. Do you suspect that the government will come under pressure later in the year if there's not downward pressure on prices to do something?
They negotiated the last government, which is now the current government almost, negotiated the last price explosion last time pretty well, but that was with verging on price controls, and there were significant subsidies.
But they've already extended the VAT reduction on electricity prices over the summer, which is effectively a 12-month extension.
They've frozen that, as well. So there will be price rise for fear of catastrophising further. There will be price rises, and that's what Donald Trump has caused by ending, for the first time in 100 years, free trade on the globe. That's what will happen. And are we going to get into that phase we did, particularly after Liz Truss's disastrous budget in England, that we have to start supporting consumers when it comes to important things? And we're not being flippant when we talk about Kerrygold, and I'm gazing longingly at it because we get the Dunn's brand at home.
It's also got up in price.
But serious matters for households like electricity bills, mortgages will go up. And everything else. And the government may actually and I was frowning somewhat on the idea that they'd subsidise right now on this problem. But if the prices towards the end of the year coming up to the budget, we may have to see another raft of consumer supports.
What should they do?
I think we need to see a continuation of supports, but I think shifting from what we saw during the last few years, which we had criticised as being not targeted enough in terms of the supports that were provided through the inflationary times that we've seen. We need to see much more targeted supports, and I do think, once again, we need to make sure that those kinds of solutions are on the table. I mean, people are making really difficult decisions around who they can feed around a dinner table, and there are a lot of families in poverty or at risk of poverty. I've done a lot of work with lone parent families in particular. And these are the decisions they're making. Is it the heating I put on tonight, or do I take dinner, or do I feed everybody in the house, or do I skip this particular meal? And they're the very, very real decisions that people across Ireland face, and the government needs to take that into account during this next budget cycle.
Michael Hegarty is watching from Charleville, says, come on, folks, a pound of Kerrygold butter is cheap at twice that price. Anyway, thank you to Michael.
I presume he's a dairy farmer.
Yeah, well, he might even be working for Kerrygold, who knows.